Hey, how's it going? Jossie here. As I'm sure most of you are aware, in patch 9.1, which comes out in a couple months, hopefully, every class is getting 4 new legendaries, 1 for each covenant that buffs the covenant ability that you get. Finally, we have the priest ones that are getting released. They've been releasing the classes bit by bit for each of the patch updates. So we finally have the priest ones, and just to note here, these are not final, right? I know some of the other classes got some legendaries revealed, and then they got changed with coming out patches. So until the patch comes out, these are not final, but we finally see at least what they look like here. So I'm going to be talking over them, going over what I think, and specifically I'm going to be talking about if I think they're going to be good in RBGs or not, and if we want to take them as a Disc Priest into RBGs in 9.1. Okay, to start with, we have the Kyrian ability, Sphere's Harmony. Okay, so Boon of the Ascendant's cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds up to 60 seconds for each stack of Boon of the Ascended consumed by Ascended Eruption. Okay, so honestly, this is pretty disappointing. Like, if you read this, basically all it does is reduce the cooldown of Boon of the Ascended. If we take the best case for it, right, which is just reduced by 60 seconds every time, Boon of the Ascended cooldown is now 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes, and that's it. That's all Legendary does. So from an RPG perspective, Boon of the Ascended is a really weak ability, right? Like, you need to pre-plan for this ability to work, right? Like, you need to be like, oh, in 20 seconds, big damage is going to come out, so I'm going to use Boon now, start building up my stacks, and then do the Ascended Eruption, and he'll run out from the big damage that comes out, right? But that's not how it works in PvP, that's not how it works in RBGs. You can't be like, in 20 seconds from now, the Paladin's going to use Wings and destroy my team, so I need Boon ready right now. No matter what the cooldown is on this ability, if it's 2 minutes, even if it's like 1 minute, it probably is not going to be that great for RBGs, and I don't think we're going to be taking it even with this legendary. So Kyrian, for the same reason we don't pick this Covenant, is out. Next one we want to look at here in the Necrolord legendary is Pallid Command. Casting Unholy Nova summons a Maldraxxi champion to AG for X seconds. Each time an ally is healed by an Unholy Transfusion, your Maldraxxi champion's healing and damage done is increased by 1% up to a maximum of X%. Now this one is kind of interesting, I guess, right? Each time you cast Unholy Nova, it summons a dude to help you. Pretty unique, but like pretty, it's like totally different from what the ability normally does, right? So that's kind of interesting. The only issue here is we have no idea what the Maldraxxi champion does, which tells us everything about this legendary, right? Like if it's good or not, if it's good enough to make Unholy Nova useful. I don't know if this champion is going to have abilities, like if it can maybe a stun or do an AoE damage or something, or anything really. Like, or even if it doesn't do any abilities, if it just auto attacks or something, depends how much damage it does, right? Like, is it, like, after you stack it up with Pallid Command, is it going to be able to one-shot players? I don't know. Is it going to do nothing? Is it going to do, like, 100 DPS? We don't have any information about that right now, so unfortunately, Pallid Command, I can't really make a judgment on it right now. It all depends on what this champion does and how strong it is. Unfortunately, though, just the way that Unholy Nova works, it's not the best for RBGs, right? It's kind of more like a raw damage kind of thing. Good for DPS, but not good for burst. And it does like kind of like slow ticking heals for your team and everyone it hits. In RPG situations, it's just not that useful. It's not good to swing a fight, and it requires your team to focus targets that as you get hit by this, it requires, you know, enemies and your allies to be stacked to get good value out of. And overall, it's just not great in RBGs, which is why we don't take Necrolord right now. And from my best guess, they're not going to make the champion super OP, because that would break it in Arena, and that would break it in PvE. So most likely, I think we're not going to be taking Pallid Command up. All right, next, finally, we get into the Covenants that we actually care about, Night Fae and Venthyr. So first, Bonsomdi's Pact. Each time you take damage from Shadow Word Death while your Fae Guardians are active, your Fairy's effective is increased by 25%. So first glance, it seems pretty good, right? 25% is a big buff. Shadow Word Death, sure, whatever. But let's look at some numbers here, okay? Fae Guardians last 20 seconds. The cooldown of Shadow Word Death is 20 seconds. It is affected by haste, okay? So Shadow Word Death is affected by haste. But even for me, I stack haste, second to verse, of course. But I have like 21% haste or something, and my Shadow Word Death cooldown is 17 seconds, I think. So what this means is, because the cooldowns are the same as the duration of Fae Guardians, you're going to get one cast off. Right, you cast Fae Guardians, then you Shadow Word Death. Your fire is affected by 25% increase. And that's it. That's the end of it. That's legendary, right? Like, they can literally cut out the part where it says each time you take damage from Shadow Word Death. It could just say your Fate Guardians are increased by 25% effectiveness, and it would be exactly the same thing for us. Obviously, this was made this way for Shadow Priests, probably in an M+ situation where they can reset their Shadow Word Deaths. But what that does mean is that for Disc Priest, this sucks. I think this is kind of an issue that's been communicated since like Shadowlands launch, basically, where like you look at this legendary here, and it's so obviously built for Shadow Priest. It's 100% only made for Shadow Priest who can reset their Shadow Word Death. Like for Disc and Holy, you only ever get one Shadow Word Death within your Fate Guardian's duration. It's just silly. And people were saying there's no way to balance his Covenant abilities, spread all the specs and everything. And you know what? Maybe they're right. But yeah, basically, no, we won't be taking this. Let's just move on to the next one. For Venthyr, we have Shadow Word Manipulation. Mind Games gains 1 additional charge, and its cast time is increased by 50%. Now, I used to do a lot of PvE, okay? So I understand instantly where this is going, okay? They increase Spirit Shell cooldown to 1.5 minutes, right? 2 charges of Mind Games is 1.5 minutes. What this means is with this legendary, every time you do your ramp and you cast Spirit Shell, you get to cast 2 Mind Games, which is going to be a huge burst of shielding for PvE rating. Obviously in RBGs and in PvP in general, we don't care about Spirit Shell. So unfortunately, I'm pretty certain the way this is designed is for PvE, Disc Priests. But ignoring that, let's just look into if it's going to be good or not, right? So gives you 1 additional charge, and its cast time is increased by 50%. It doesn't actually mean you get more casts of Mind Games overall, right? Because if you were going to cast it on cooldown, you still only need to cast 1 at a time. You had to wait a full 1.5 minutes for 2 charges to fully get filled up. Then you can cast 2 in a row. And I think in an arena situation, it could be interesting in that you cast Mind Games, they dispel it, then you cast another one right away, and now they can dispel the second one. So you can definitely get some kill secures there. But then you look at the drawback of this, which is the cast time increased to 50%, which means it casts right now 1.5 seconds, right? So yeah, and then it's going to be 2.25 cast time for the new one, which means when you cast 2 in a row, it takes 4.5 seconds to cast 2 in a row. That's longer than G-Pie, that's longer than Greater Heal. Like, it took a really, really long time to be able to cast 2 Mind Games in a row. I feel like in Arena, it might be interesting in some comps where you can get this crazy setup with double Mind Games. But I think, like, in addition to the trade-off of the cast time here, right? Like, you're getting a trade-off here already, a drawback. But you're also losing your other legendary again, right? You're losing your Cephas, which is a huge boost to your stats and to your total uptime because of the cooldown on CCs and stuff, right? And then if we look at RPGs, this provides no extra throughput because you gain the same amount of Mind Games as if you just cast it off cooldown. You get a bit more kill pressure, but it takes 4.5 seconds of casting a ramp up to get it. And even then, with 3 healers in RBGs, they can actually dispel both of them anyways. Yeah, I think in RBGs, this is not going to be picked up. It's just not worth it to take over Cephas. I feel like, I don't know, like, because it's a legendary, like, legendaries already have the drawback of only being able to pick one of them, right? So by picking this legendary, you lose on the other legendaries. So with that in mind, like, why do they need to add another drawback to this? Maybe they tested it and it'd be too powerful. Which I think might be true, actually. I feel like in Arena, if you get just additional charge of Mind Games, you would just be blowing people up everywhere. But then, of course, the drawback here hurts us in RPGs. So there you have it. That's the 4 new legendaries for Covenants for Priest in coming 9.1. Honestly, I am pretty disappointed. I mean, we all knew that RPG is not like the main form of content, right? It doesn't have the biggest player base. But when I look at these legendaries, it just feels to me like they weren't made with RPGs in mind, or even PvP in mind for most of these. I feel like they're just made for PvE, right? And like some of them specifically for some specs even, right? Like not even for Disc. Like you just can't take it for Disc. I predict that even if there are some numerical changes in some of these, I don't think we're going to end up taking these in RPGs. I think for 9.1, Disc Priest, we're probably going to be sticking with Cephas, which can be a good thing. It means you don't have to farm more Soul Ash for these guys. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's also unfortunate that the one legendary we do end up taking, Cephas, is like the generic legendary. It goes to show like the other Priest legendaries aren't that interesting either. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully you learned something here. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this as well. You know, if I missed something here or if you disagree with me at some point, let me know in the comments below. It's like I said in the beginning, it's possible that these get changed as time goes on. I will make some updates. I'll give my thoughts on them if my opinions change on them based on those updates. But for now, Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.